And go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Maggie Felker, and I'm the school nurse at One City. I'm working virtually during the pandemic, but I'm thinking of all of the children there. My book is called Sense Pass King, a story from Cameroon, which is in West Africa. And it's a story about a very smart little girl. Here's her village in Cameroon. In the land of 7 villages lived a man and a woman. They were simple farmers and they were happy enough, except that they had no children. Then at last, the woman gave birth to a baby girl and named her Ma'anta. It soon became clear that Ma'anta was an exceptional child. Before she was 1 year old, she could walk and talk. And by the time she was 2, she could speak the languages of all 7 villages, and she could communicate with animals. When she was 3, she could prepare dinner for her whole family. The villagers were amazed by Ma'anta's cleverness. Soon they began to call her Sense Pass King because she had more sense than even the king himself. It wasn't long before news of the child reached the king himself. How can this be? He wondered. A little girl, not even 4 years old? Outrageous. Here is that king. Go and find the child, Ma'anta, he told his soldiers, the one the stupid villagers call Sense Pass King. Take her to the heart of the forest and leave her there. The panthers and the snakes will take care of her. He was a very mean king. One morning, the soldiers came, or Sense Pass King, after her parents had left for the fields. When Sense Pass King saw the soldiers marching down the path, she quickly filled a sack with ashes from the fire. She made a small hole in it, then tied it to her waist. The soldiers laughed when they saw the tiny child who had made the king get so angry. They picked her up and carried her deep into the forest, and they left her there. As soon as they had gone, Sense Pass King followed the trail of ashes that had trickled through the hole in the sack. And in no time at all, she was safely home again. And you can see that she is riding on her friend the panther, and she's got her friends the snakes around her neck. The years passed. Sense Pass King became more intelligent each day. She thought of better ways for the farmers to plant their crops. And soon the farmers were growing twice as many vegetables. Next, she invented a machete that allowed the villagers to clear their fields in half the time that it had once taken them. Sense Pass King became very popular. People came to ask her for advice whenever they had a problem. The king began hearing rumors that Sense Pass King was still alive. He was furious and he decided to get rid of her once and for all. He instructed his soldiers to dig a pit behind the palace. He would trap Sense Pass King there until she starved to death. As soon as Sense Pass King heard that soldiers were digging a pit, she guessed the king's plan. That night, while her parents slept, she went outside and asked her friends, the moles, to do her a favor. I don't know if you can see, the moles dug a long tunnel for Sense Pass King. In a few days, the soldiers came to take Sense Pass King away. Her mother and father began to cry, but Ma'anta went without a fuss. After the soldiers put her in the pit, she found the entrance to the tunnel the moles had dug and crawled her way back home to her house. When the king found that Sense Past King had escaped his trap, he was shaken. The young girl must be extraordinarily powerful, he thought to himself. Better to keep her near me where I can watch her every move. He ordered Ma'anta to come live with him in the palace, and there he kept her busy washing clothes and pounding grain. Every evening after the day's work was finished, the king called Ma'anta to bring him his pipe. While he sat by his fire smoking, he talked to himself about the problems in his kingdom. Ma'anta stayed quietly beside him. After the king finished speaking, she gave him suggestions. The king took her good advice, and the people of the 7 villages were happy and prosperous. And there she is, advising the king. One day, a messenger came to the kingdom. A powerful emperor in a faraway country wishes to give his daughter in marriage to the suitor he finds most worthy, he said. The king was overjoyed. A marriage to the emperor's daughter would increase his wealth and influence, he decided. He prepared to journey to the emperor's court. The king took 10 of his most trusted soldiers and Ma'anta to cook for them. The party traveled for 3 days and 3 nights across the ocean. And there you can see Ma'anta with a lot of food on her head. The emperor greeted the king and his company. He called for his daughter Tchana to come and meet the strangers. Although she was still a child, she was already as beautiful as the evening star. She is. The king was pleased at the thought of marrying this lovely creature. Your Excellency, he addressed the emperor, I assure you that I will care for your daughter as I would a precious jewel. Perhaps, replied the emperor, but she's still a child. It will be years before she's ready for marriage. If you think you can care for her, you have to prove it to me. Ever since birth, Tchana has had a very poor appetite. If you want to take my daughter, prove that you will make her eat properly. The king ordered Ma'anta to prepare a delicious meal for Tchana. She cooked rice and chicken, meat and soup, cakes and vegetables. She gathered mangoes and bananas and coconuts and peanuts. When the meal was ready, the king called for Tchana. See all the delicious food I've prepared for you, the king asked the little girl. Go ahead and eat it. But Tchana only shrugged. I'm not really hungry, she said. Tchana, wait, called Ma'anta. I want to show you something. Ma'anta untied a string of bells from around her waist and began to play a song. When Tchana heard the bells, she was delighted and started to play with them. And you can see her here. That's Ma'anta. And here is Tchana playing with the bells. She opened her mouth in laughter, and Ma'anta quickly popped in a small piece of mango. The little princess was so happy with the bells, she chewed and swallowed without thinking about it. Then Sense Past King fed her a piece of chicken, all the while continuing to play the game with the bells. And in this way, Tchana soon finished the meal. The emperor smiled at Ma'anta. You are a very clever young woman. I entrust my daughter to your care. The enraged king held up his machete to kill Sense Past King then and there. Wait, your majesty, she whispered to him. Don't shame yourself before the emperor. Remember, I live in the palace with you. Everything I own is yours, even the little princess. When Tchana is old enough, she'll marry you just as you planned. The king saw the truth in Ma'anta's words, and he agreed to let Ma'anta bring the little girl home. But as they left the emperor's lands, all was calm. But as soon as they were out to sea, the ship was almost capsized by an enormous wave. And from behind the wave, a horrible sea lizard rose. He was bigger than a baobab tree and had 7 heads. Each of his 7 mouths spouted fire and steam. "Where is the princess?" the monster thundered. "Give me the princess!" The soldiers tried to shoot the monster, but their arrows bounced off his thick scales. "Shoot his eyes!" cried Sense Past King. But the dreadful creature terrified the men so that their hands shook, and most of the arrows missed. Soon there was only 1 arrow left, but the monster still had 4 heads. "What should we do?" the soldiers asked the king. "Give him the princess!" he cried, shaking with fear. "We have to save ourselves." Sense Past King couldn't let that happen. "Hand me your bow," she ordered the soldier with one last arrow. "I can kill him." The king spat at her. "You? What can you do?" But the soldier handed the bow to Sense Past King. Standing in front of the sea lizard with the bow hidden behind her, Sense Past King suddenly began to scream, "Oh no, oh no! First you came and now you've brought your brother too! What will happen to us now?" When the monster heard this, he was very surprised. He thought he was the only one of his kind. He looked left and right, his head swiveling in every direction, trying to catch a glimpse of his brother. "Don't you see him?" cried Sense Past King, pointing to the right. "He's over there. He's even bigger than you. Oh no, oh no." The monster craned all 4 of his remaining heads in the direction Sense Past King pointed. As soon as her eyes, and I want you to see Sense Past King, as soon as his eyes were looking in the same direction, Ma'anta raised her bow and aimed. Her single arrow passed through all his 8 eyes. With flames bellowing from his dreadful mouths, the monster sank to the bottom of the sea. The travelers returned to the 7 villages with the beautiful Tchana. All the people came out to welcome them and hear the story of their journey. The king told everyone he had won the child for his bride and had rescued the ship from the terrible sea lizard. But his soldiers, disgusted by his cowardice and dishonesty, told the people the truth, that they owed their lives to the bravery and the wisdom of Sense Past King. And here she is over here. That is how Sense Past King lost her name. When the people heard the true story, they drove the king from the palace and away from the 7 villages. And then they made Ma'anta their queen. Queen Ma'anta ruled wisely and well. She taught Tchana how to speak the language of the animals. The little princess befriended the wild creatures of the forest who often came to visit the palace. The people of the 7 villages lived in peace and prosperity for all the years of Ma'anta's reign. And here she is talking to the big black panther with her friend Tchana. So this is a story from Cameroon, and the author is Katrin Tchana, who looks like maybe she's from the United States, but she married a man from Cameroon, and this man's mama told him this story when he was a little boy. And that's the end of the story, Sense Past King.